So the news came in last night of the collapse of a 3-story building which is under construction in Idiarere area of Ibadan, your state. And thankfully, some of the construction workers have been rescued. So, indeed, we've been faced this week with the heartbreaking pictures and videos from the site of an earlier collapsed building in Itafaji area of Lagos Island. Our hearts and prayers go out to the families who've lost their loved ones, including young school children. You know, it's been happening before, but this one seems to be
horrible. How the Ministry of Education gave a permit for a school to be on the 3rd floor of a building that had residential area on the 2nd floor, and then shops in the bottom. Then you have a school on the 3rd floor.
Now, many people have lost.
They will explain that to us.
Of, you know, these buildings that have collapsed in Nigeria, but there are so many questions. Why do these buildings collapse? We have in the house this morning former president, Nigerian Institution of Structural Engineers, Engineer Kunle Adebaju. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
He's here with the Secretary, Nigerian Institution of Structural Engineers, Engineer Bright Ukbono. Good to have you this morning. And we also have an architect who is an expert on construction and plumbing solutions, Ovie Beniche. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So I just go straight to Mr. Adebaju. Why do we have buildings collapse?
Good morning. You know, if we had the full answer to that, we probably certainly wouldn't be here now. I think the first thing I would say is it's very unfortunate, and I think we all sympathize with those who have been affected. It's even more alarming to hear that just last night, whilst we were still struggling with the consequences of the first one, and something else has happened. In a nutshell, it's important to explain that buildings in themselves, being structures, are made up of so many things. And it's as a result of a long process, of various processes of design, of foundations, beams, columns. And then in addition, those structures react to how they're used. So if, as you said, maybe the building is extended beyond what it should be, or it's not used in the right way, then there will be consequences. In addition, I should make a distinction between the collapse on Wednesday and yesterday's collapse. The one on Wednesday was a very old building. It was obviously showing the effects of age. It may have been illegally extended, we don't know. And in addition, it was certainly being subjected to a change of use. It was never designed to be used in that way.
I was going to ask, is it a function of how old the building is, or, you know, some of these other factors that you've pointed out?
Well, maybe the easiest way to give an example is we all, as human beings, we age. And obviously, if you were 21, say a 21-year-old man, probably able to carry much more than a 40-year-old, and then a 60-year-old, and then a 90-year-old. So once you start to get into the realms of the 90s, you need a lot more bombs to keep you going. You need to reduce the load, etc. So sometimes the defects that probably were already in that building, inherent in that building, start to come to light as we get towards the latter part, time of the life of the building. So that's it. But I was just giving the comparison between Wednesday and Friday. Friday, as far as we know, yesterday, was a building under construction. And you will actually find that from what we've been facing, the latter, which is the one of yesterday, is what we see so regularly. And when you have to answer the question as to why are those collapsing, it's generally because they're not being built the way they should be built, because they don't have the involvement of the right type of professionals. So that's a major aspect. But the Lagos one, which is probably scarier is that there are a lot of buildings all around Lagos, all around the country, that are now in existence, and we know that even based on statistical analysis alone, that there are many of them that have defects, many of them that are approaching their last days, and they're still being used, and there must be a way, more floors being added, so there must be a way in which we are monitoring these buildings and making sure that we can predict and assess those that need either, dare I say, demolition or some form of rehabilitation. And I will use that, I won't hog the microphone, but I will say that demolition is not the only solution.
Okay. Mr. Upono, this particular building in Itafaji had a school on the 3rd floor, schooled about 100 children. I want your thoughts about an approved school, approved in quotes, on the 3rd floor of a building that had other things going on the 1st floor and on the 2nd floor. Are schools not supposed to have playing grounds and stuff like that? Maybe I'm old school.
No, you are not, and you are quite right in your thought line. You see, school, that is planning issues now. Of course, schools have their criteria, how it should be built, where it should be situated, and other necessary facilities that should be available. Like my past president rightly said, what we witness there is misuse of structure. See, as engineers, when we design, the first thing that comes to mind is what the structure will be used for. And that determines a lot of things that you put in place in terms of design, construction, and other factors you'll consider. But a situation where you now have a building that was originally designed as residential, now someone for just pecuniary gain decide to change the use with that recourse to the design engineer, that is a recipe for disaster. And that is what we are experiencing today. I think the public needs enlightenment. We need education. And people need to do the right thing. This incident that happened, the Lagos incident, is very unfortunate because it is totally avoidable.
Yeah. Yeah.
The reason being that the structure itself had shown sufficient distress signs. And if you ask me, I would say that the victims, especially the adults, inadvertently committed suicide because you see a structure that is showing you, I cannot cope with the environment any longer, I cannot cope with the load, yet the person still occupy that structure. So,
now, Mr. Benite, we're told that that particular building had been marked for demolition since 2018. Can you just take us through the process? If it was marked since 2018, how come people are still staying there? School is still going in 2019. Businesses are still running on the bottom floor.
Thank you very much. While I was preparing for this, my thoughts went to ethics and morals. Now, ethics are principles that guide our activities in our professional work, as against morals, which are individual, guidelines.
Subjective.
Yes, subjective. Now, morals kept that building in place. ethics were sold down the river. Now, ethics compel you to do the right thing. Now, Lagos State has a building act that was signed in 2010 by Fashola, and it specifies all of these things very clearly. Now, there's a Lagos State LABSCA. There's also LASORB. LASORB is Urban Renewal Board.
Okay.
Now, the responsibility for Lagos Island, for instance, falls squarely into the laps of Lagos Urban Renewal Board. Now, the general manager of that board and the general manager of LABSCA were the people who designated the building as distressed.
Okay.
Now, when the governor visited, he said, we're having challenges with landlords and all that in pulling down distressed buildings. Now, that's morality playing its lead role. Now, when we allow morality play its lead role, we abdicate our responsibilities as leaders.
Okay, if I just add this, the LASCA
Yes.
Official mentioned yesterday that most of those buildings that they are in court over that demolition.
I'm aware.
So if they are in court and the court is yet to decide whether they should go ahead with it, what can the government do?
Now we have lost children because, see, all of this is because there is, ultimately it boils down to a failure of leadership, right? Now, you had a guest last night on your news who said, if the Urban Renewal Board were to have a meeting with the landlords and say, look, we are pulling down this area because everything here is going to be disaster.
The disaster is going to happen.
This is the plan we have come up with. We're going to have parks. We're going to have all of this. Your property is worth X amount to you. In the new scheme of things, we are going to apportion you 15 apartments from which you'll be earning income. Now, if it's of benefit to the owner of the distressed building for the building to come down and he's going to get something more beneficial to this environment and to himself, don't you think he will buy into it? He would. Now, the law also provides for compensation if you pull down a distressed building. It's not just by fiat, but when a building that, and I'm sure that there are buildings that have been earmarked for demolition since 2010, still standing, right? Now, the governor has now given approval to pull down 80 buildings. Are those buildings not in court also? So we know what to do, but what we call political will, which I call lack of bravery or, you know, is just not there to do the right thing. Now, what could cause a building collapse? What could cause a building to be distressed? A building is made up of sand, cement, aggregate, and steel. What holds them together, what binds them together ab initio is water. Now, they acquire strength as the water is expelled from the body. Now, when water begins to get into it again after it has dried, it begins to weaken. Now, where does water come from in a building? Bad plumbing. And bad plumbing is the bane of our construction industry. It's the Achilles heel of the entire construction industry.
So even if the structure itself was, you know, the sand, the cement, the aggregate, and steel, everything was good,
yes,
and then the plumbing is bad, then there's an issue.
There's an issue.
Okay.